Hello, everybody. We are in the Storage Room podcast. Welcome back. And today I'm Shiloh, and I'm here with Deputy Commissioner John and Commissioner David. And we're going to be asking them some questions about their work as public safety in the city of White Plains. So I want to start with a question for both. Tell us about your background, sort of the qualifications, and what really brought you to do what you do.
Well, the thing is if we go into that, it'll take hours, okay? Because we both have over 40 years in law enforcement. I've got 45 years now since January. And so I'll quickly describe to you. I was one of the youngest detectives in the history of the New York City Police Department, hired in 1979 and went undercover immediately in the Asian gangs. I didn't go to the police academy until I was a second grade detective. Then I was one of the youngest sergeants ever, youngest detective sergeants. And most of my career was done with undercover work and the Organized Crime Control Division and narcotics and the FBI task forces. I rose to the rank of detective lieutenant in charge of the undercovers and the operations of the federal task forces that were investigating organized crime. After that, 9/11 happened. The world exploded around us. And I was ready to retire and get a job as an adjunct professor. Or not an adjunct, as a full-time professor. I was offered a job with John Jay College. And then it changed. A new mayor came in, a new police commissioner came in, Ray Kelly, who I had worked for the first time. And he asked me to stick around and join a covert federal operation, which I did for a couple of years. And my reward for that was to come up here and be a deputy commissioner of public safety in the city of White Plains. And then I eventually went to be the police commissioner of the city of Mount Vernon, where I met John Roland, who was coming up the ladder. He was a captain. And John became my deputy chief and eventually became the chief of police of Mount Vernon. And Mount Vernon is a very, very busy city in itself. And after 3.5 years, very quickly, I went from being the commissioner of Mount Vernon. They brought me back here to be the commissioner of everything. That's why we call it public safety. And that includes police, fire, EMS, 911, and all essential hazards. And I came back here. I'm in my 15th year. I just did my 15th year here as commissioner. And I guess it was about maybe 2.5 years ago that I brought you back, John, from retirement. And John will get into his history.
Hi, Shiloh. Thanks for having us today. My family has a history of civil service. My dad was a firefighter for 40 years. His 3 sons were police officers, so I have 2 brothers who have retired from the police department. I started my career in Mount Vernon Police Department right out of high school as a police cadet. I then joined the Mount Vernon Police Department and rose through the ranks to chief of department. I worked with Commissioner Chong for 3.5 years in Mount Vernon. And after about 38 years with the city of Mount Vernon, I moved on to the Port Authority Police Department of New York and New Jersey. I was hired there and assigned as the commanding officer at JFK Airport. Really great experience, unique, a lot different from the policing environment that I had in Mount Vernon, moving into the transportation field. I was with the Port Authority for about 6.5, 7 years, decided to retire, was retired for 2.5 years, loved retirement, enjoyed every moment of it.
But you failed to mention that when you were with the Port Authority, you were promoted a couple of times.
Yes, thanks for reminding me, Commissioner. I was hired as a captain and retired from the Port Authority as an inspector. Subsequently, my last assignment was at headquarters as the chief of staff to the superintendent of the Port Authority Police Department. I was retired for 2.5 years when Commissioner Chong gave me a call and said, I have a job for you. Why don't you come back to work? And it took a little persuasion on his part, but here I am. And I've been with the Department of Public Safety now for a little over 2.5 years.
Wow, amazing.
And he does all the heavy lifting now. Since I got him back, he does all the heavy lifting for me. And my life has been so much easier having him back. But again, we have that history of 3.5 years where he began as a captain. And when I left, he was the deputy chief. And so I know him well and I trust him well.
Okay. So, Commissioner Chong, you mentioned that you went undercover in the triads, correct?
Yes, I was actually, I started, and we won't get into how it operates and everything, but the FBI had a confidential source, which was a made man, let's say, a capo, if you would connect it to the Italian mafia. So he was very high in the triads, and he brought me in as his nephew. So I immediately had creds within the gangs, and I started in the youth gangs, and I rose to be one of the street dilos of the Flying Dragons.
So, how would you say being an undercover cop, being away from your family for multiple months?
Yeah, actually a couple years being separated. I would get to see them, but it was always top secret stuff.
So, how would you say being an undercover cop affected you, your personal life, your family life? And if you could go back, do you think that you would change maybe taking on the role?
Yes. Well, back then, you have to understand that it was 1979 and the beginning of the early 80s. So the technology now is tremendous. And I learned that when I went to the federal government after 9/11. Back then, we were still relatively primitive. We were using Nagra recorders, which were big recorders that were the size of a basically tape recorder, and we would tape them underneath like the couch or the desk or whatever. We were using rolling film, and we were actually using a clock that actually had like needles on it, and it would show you the date and the time and everything. And when we walked into the apartment, it was so primitive that if I hit the switch, one switch, the lights would go on and everything. If I hit both switches, then what would happen was the camera would go on and everything. And you would actually, being the person that was the gang boss, you would place people where you wanted to place them. So I had my chair, but I would place my guests who were all gangsters. I would place them like on the couch and stuff, and the camera would be aiming at them. So, again, today we could listen honestly, I say it in joke, but it's true. We can listen to a camel fart in the middle of the Arabian desert and launch a tomahawk and hit him in the butt. It wasn't that way back then. Back then, when I first started, there were no cell phones. There weren't even pagers, really. What we did was we did everything by street, payphones and everything. And, so it was very primitive back then. And we had to do our cases that way. So it was a lot different than now. If I had to do it again, no. It destroyed my first family life because I was taken away from my family, and my family was the gang family.
Mm. Okay, thank you. So I have another question for Deputy Commissioner Roland. What made you sort of want to get into this line of work? Was this always something that you were interested in, or was it something along the way that sort of gave you a change of heart?
So there's a long history with my family. I had uncles and cousins who were in the police and fire department. And growing up, my dad's firehouse was just a couple of blocks from where we lived. So we spent a lot of time there. You know, when mom would take us out for the day, we'd somehow always end up over at the firehouse. And, you know, as a small child, you know, the biggest thrill was getting to sit in the fire truck. My dad would take us down the pole. Um, I better clarify that. So in firehouses way back when, the firefighters slept on the second floor, and of course the fire trucks were on the first floor. And the most advantageous way for them to get to the fire trucks was there was a hole in the floor with the brass pole, and they slid down the pole onto the fire trucks. So that was a big thrill as a child. So I was pretty much exposed to the police fire my entire life. And really the big decision wasn't what I was going to do. It was, am I going to be a cop or am I going to be a fireman?
So you always sort of knew that you were going to be something in this sort of line of work?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like it was an expectation for you to become this? Or you always sort of wanted to because you were so exposed to it and your whole family's a part of it and you just felt like you wanted to be a part of that as well?
I think I wanted to be a part of it. There was never any expectation on the part of my parents or any of my relatives, you know, pushing us in one direction or the other. And my dad was, you know, he was an authoritarian from way back when, but you know, he really let us develop our own futures. He kind of facilitated our futures, is what I like to say. But there was never any expectation. It was always an inner desire that I had.
Hmm. Okay.
I think it's funny though, because knowing his history and knowing his family, his father was, the old firefighter, been around, the corner and, the head of the firehouse and kind of everything. And all three brothers said, we want to be police officers. So I kind of think that was funny with the Rolands.
So now I have a question for both. What do you do if you find yourself in a very stressful situation where sort of like you have to think fast and act quick, whether it's a crime being committed in public, whether it's something else, how do you calm yourself and sort of prepare yourself for what's to come in a short period of time?
Well, I'll answer first, and that is, knowledge comes with experience. The way I would have reacted when I was younger would not be the way I would react now. You give it some thought. I mean, it's quickly thinking, but it's part of experience, and you do what you have to do. And being such high-ranking members of a department, and plus being older, you don't jump out of the car and be Batman and Robin anymore. If we have to, yes, we will get involved, but because of our ranks and everything, what we do is we digest everything very quickly, and through experience, we know what we need. So with radio communications and with communications being so easy, which it was not back when we first started, we were lucky the radios, when you broadcast on them, worked. But now the radios have gotten so modern. We have these cell phones, the modern technology and everything else. And they've gotten so easy to broadcast something. And I will tell you that the city of White Plains, the city of Mount Vernon, and I came from the monster, which is the city of New York. But I would tell you, I was in Mount Vernon, and, if you call for help, it's on the way. I mean, our officers and our fire department is wonderful. And I think that the combination, and he got a taste of it when he was with the Port Authority, of the combination of both police and fire working together. When we put out a broadcast, as car 1 or car 2 in the city of White Plains, everybody comes. And it's within seconds. And it's depending on the emergency. And we'll actually have the knowledge of looking at something and saying, slow it down. It's not, we don't want officers or firefighters getting hurt getting here. It's under control. Or we're looking at it as a managerial thing where we don't want officers and firefighters getting hurt coming to our broadcast. If we have to, yes, we have peace officer status. We will get out of the car and we will actually hold the person. And, if I turn around and say, car 1, I have somebody at gunpoint for a robbery or something like that. I mean, they're coming from all over the place. And the same with him. Now, I'll let him speak to how he handles it.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, I would say there's 3 parts to it. Experience, as the commissioner spoke about. The ability when you first take the job to look, listen, and learn. Because you truly learn from your peers and you learn from the experience. And then one of the things that has just improved tremendously over both our careers is training. We spend a substantial amount of time in both time for our firefighters and our police officers in training. And the training is just remarkable what we do. So a lot of times the way the officers react to stressful situation is really based and built off their training. And it becomes instinctive on how to handle these type of things.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to ask both of you sort of what exactly is your role and what are the responsibilities that come with it? Being a commissioner and a deputy commissioner, what are sort of the differences and what exactly authority does it grant you?
Okay, well, first of all, being the commissioner of public safety is no joke. I am responsible for protecting all of people that live in the city of White Plains and all the people that visit and do commerce in the city of White Plains. I am responsible for their public safety. If they need an ambulance, if there's a fire, or God forbid they need the police, I am responsible to get them their resources and to make sure that they are treated equally and professionally by our city. And I am the head of public safety. So when they see me, they expect a certain service from us. And I will say that. And with the new administration and the new president that's come in and everything else, we spent a lot of time building up our relationships with the so-called minority population. And I will tell you that those relationships should not go away because there's a new president and, he has his new, efforts on migration and migration enforcement and all this other stuff. We still want you to believe in the city of White Plains. We treat everybody equally and fairly. I think the biggest part of our thing is our city is growing so rapidly and growing so fast that we have to keep growing along with our city, which we're very blessed to have a very good mayor right now. And we're hoping that our new mayor, whoever it may be, will also treat us the same way as our current mayor is treating us, and that we have a spot at the table where we can turn around and say, we need this and we need that to continue with the growth of our city, but also to continue with the trust of our residents. And, I don't like to call them our citizens, but our residents of the city of White Plains. We want them to continue to trust us. And that is one of the things that is going to get more difficult as we have to work with the new administration, as trust, because it took us a long time to build that trust. And we want people from, whether you're legally in the country or you're illegally in the country, we want you to trust us, and we want you to call for us if you need help, okay? And we're not going to take ICE's job from them, okay? And I want people to know that we are still a public safety service department, and we're here to serve you, whether you're be legal or you're not legal. And that's very important because people get frightened now. And people think because they run a red light and they don't have the proper, paperwork or whatever, that we're going to turn them over to ICE. We're not going to do that, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to summons you. And we're not going to ask you for your citizenship, or we're not going to ask you so don't run away from us. Take your summons, go to court, pay your ticket, and let's be on with it. And, our thing is to ensure that the department has the proper funding and the proper equipment to go forward with a fast growing city. And basically, I'm lucky because I have John with me, and he thinks the same way as I think. And John is often, he is basically my shadow. So the way I feel, and we talk every morning, the way I feel about how the city grows and how we treat our population with respect, with professionalism, and with courtesy. And that's our three main goals: courtesy, professionalism, and respect. That's how we want to treat everybody that either comes into the city of White Plains or actually lives here right now. And our biggest thing every day is dealing with the expenses that costs to run a department of our size, and to run a department and run it with respectful police officers, respectful firefighters, and respectful civilians. And that's our main goal, is to make sure that the people are not afraid of us, number one, and the people will come to us if they need help, whether they're aliens, illegals, or whatever. We care about your health, and we care that you're safe. And I think John believes the same things that I believe in, and I won't talk for John, but that's how I feel.
So my duties are the business of the police department. So to speak, my Compton robbers days are over. Just to give you a little background on the department itself, we're almost 500 employees. We have a budget of over $80 million a year. So it's the business of the police department, making sure that our officers and firefighters are properly equipped. We have the proper equipment. That ranges from anything from buying tablets and computers to fire trucks and police cars. The commissioner and I are briefed every day by the fire chief and the police chief, and we discuss the overnight events. We'll discuss what we have planned out in the immediate future. We also do long-term planning, vision planning. As the commissioner indicated, the city is growing leaps and bounds. It doesn't take much to drive around the city and see another crane going up and another high-rise in place. All that building puts strains on our resources, police, fire, EMS. So the commissioner and I are constantly evaluating and planning for the future, so that when our time does come to move on, we've left the city in a better place, and we've left the department in a better place and prepared for the future.
Okay, perfect. What would you say is your favorite part about being commissioner, deputy commissioner? Is there like something that sort of stands out to you? Is there something like that you feel that is special to your job and your job only?
Yes, and that is, again, our main goal is to make sure that this is a very, very safe city with great public safety services. And when we see a successful story, and that could be that we rescued somebody, or that could be that we prevented a house from burning down or whatever, we're always very, very happy about it. We know about it. We prevented our fire department responded quickly. We prevented people from being injured. Our police department responded very quickly, and we used just the right kind of force that we had to use. We didn't use excessive force, and we brought things down. And we look at our numbers, we look at our statistics, and we measure ourselves through CompStat. We have a CompStat meeting with all our commanders and everything. And I think that keeps us going. It keeps us very, very motivated to know that we are doing better, better and better and better with what we are given by the city. And, you know, John crunches the numbers. Deputy Commissioner Roland crunches the numbers. He crunches our budget. He crunches all this stuff to ensure that we can maximize everything that we have, given to us. And the great thing about John is he's not afraid. Uh, he's not only, reports to me, but he's my friend. And he will come in with the chiefs, and he's got a great relationship with both Police Chief Castelli and Fire Chief Petrosino. And the great thing is the three of them are never afraid to come in to tell me that we should do something or tries to do something different. And everything is always because of, to the benefit, let's say, of the city. And that's what I appreciate about having the command staff that we have. Now, understand that people get promoted and people retire and we lose a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, but the three of them know our command staff, and the three of them are not afraid to come into me and say that, just because this person is such a nice person to you and says, well, you look sharp today, or we love your tie, Commissioner, or we did this, we do that. They're not the most qualified person for this position. The three of us have discussed it, and we feel that this is the most qualified for the position. And I have always been a leader that listens, because I can't be everywhere. And I've been a leader that listens to what my command staff tells me because I trust them. John?
Yeah, and the commissioner is so right on that point. One thing in my position, in any position of authority or of rank in an organization, you can't be afraid to give your boss bad news. You do a disservice to yourself and you do a disservice to your boss and the organization. But to answer your question about, what really motivates me every day, it's probably something that goes way back that, I'd heard one time and I kind of live by the mantra. I don't have the opportunity to save a life every day, but every day I have the opportunity to change a person's life. And I think that's what keeps me going every day.
Beautiful. If you could give any student now any advice that were interested in entering a career of law enforcement, what do you think you would say to them or give them any helpful advice?
Well, I'm biased, but I think entering civil service is really a way of being able to give back to your community. Number one, we pay decent. We don't pay like doctors or lawyers or whatever. So if you want to enter the medical field or you want to enter the legal field or whatever, you'll understand that we have a lot of lawyers in New York City. The medical field is very, very important. We always need bright students to enter these different fields and everything. But if you're uh, born and raised in White Plains and you want to give back to your community or whatever, there's nothing like donning that uniform of a firefighter or donning that uniform of a police officer and knowing that you are giving back to your community. And, we pay well, we have great benefits. And although you'll never be rich, being a policeman or a firefighter, you'll be rich in your heart. You'll be rich in your heart knowing that what you do every day makes a difference in the city of White Plains.
Every day is going to be different. There's no such thing as a routine day. You have the opportunity to interact with people from all walks of life. Unfortunately, you see them in times of distress. But, as I mentioned earlier, it gives you an opportunity to really impact people's lives. And pretty much at the end of every day, you can go home with the feeling of pride and satisfaction in knowing that you may have made a small contribution, but you did make a contribution at the end of the day. And as the commissioner said, the benefits are great. You get a pension, hospitalization, all these things that you're not thinking about when you're graduating high school or, graduating college. But these are all important things when you begin to think about your future. We're talking about possibly marriage, children, and, buying a home and all the things that American dreams are built around. And that's what civil service and government work does for you. It affords you some protection in your later years where you can plan.
Okay, thank you. If you find yourself off duty, just maybe hanging around with your family, with some friends, and you witness a crime, whether it's being robbed, whether it's a mugging, whether it's just somebody doing something wrong and you know it, do you feel it's your obligation to sort of step up and do something about it? Or do you feel that there's no shame in, you're off duty, you're with your family, you're with loved ones, you're with your friends, and you just feel as though it's not your obligation?
Well, I will tell you that being in our field and being, as experienced that we are, we don't feel that we're ever off duty. Okay. And I'm no longer Batman. Uh, there's a new Batman and everything else. And we have a lot of young officers and a lot of young firefighters that'll step up to the bat and take care of business. But I do feel an obligation that if there's somebody in danger, I will step up and I will do whatever I can. And I will call for help, and if I call for help, my people will come. But no, I will never ignore somebody that's in trouble. That's ingrained in my blood. And I'm never going to ignore that. That's just something that's been ingrained in me for 40 some odd years. And I think that'll be ingrained in me when I'm an old man and I'm sitting on the porch, with my hound dog and we're sitting out in somewhere. And if somebody is committing a crime, the least I will do is I will pick up the phone and call for help. So no, I don't think I will ever ignore that because of the way I've been, doing what I've been doing for my entire life.
I agree with the commissioner. The overwhelming majority of police officers and firefighters are going to intervene if the situation is serious enough. And, like the commissioner said, it may be something as simple as picking up the phone and calling 911 and reporting what's going on. But no, absolutely, it's part of our DNA.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we all really learned a lot about you guys, and I hope that you guys have a nice day. And thank you so much for sharing.
Well, I will tell you that was a pleasure being here. I thank everybody that's here in the room. You were a great interviewer.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
I thank Tracy Wong for inviting us, and I thank our technician. And I just hope that, you learned a little bit about what we do today. And you really would think about maybe if you want to do a service job we're always looking for good people. So if you want to come back and serve your community, please think about the Department of Public Safety, both on the police, the fire side, and even on the EMS side. We need people, good people to come and work in our department. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I'm going to put in a quick plug for our YPI program, Youth and Police Initiative. It is a fabulous program that takes young people, high school age, and we take them to the police department. They spend, I'm not sure how many weeks it is, but they see the different components of police work. And it's a great introduction for anybody thinking about civil service or community work. It's also a great opportunity for someone who may not have any interest in police work but wants to know what the inner workings are like. Great, fabulous program. I also want to thank you for having us on, and I hope you'll have us on again
Of course.
where we can talk about a whole variety of topics. And I just want to mention that, our police officers, firefighters, and our civilian staff do a really great job. Every single day they do a great job. Sometimes we don't take that time to thank them, but I know the commissioner and I want to thank them publicly for the job they do every single day.
And I want to tell all the young people, when you see your SRO or when you see a firefighter or when you see somebody and, they're just walking around or whatever, nothing makes them more happy than when you go up there and say, hey, listen, thanks for what you do. That really, really makes their day. And I do that all the time as the commissioner, and I know my deputy does it all the time too. If we're driving by a scene and they're involved in doing something or whatever, we'll stand off to the side, but then after it's done, we'll walk up to each and every one of them and shake their hands and say, hey, listen, great job, fellas and gals and everything else. And, if you're out there and you see an officer, or you see your SRO or whatever, remember, they're human beings just like you. They're only a few years older than you are. You'll go up to them and just say, hey, listen, if you believe in it, thanks for what you do. You're really making a difference because they are here to protect you, and they're here to make sure that you have a safe education and that you go on to bigger things in your lives. And thank you again for this time with you, and we really appreciate everything.
Thank you so much.